But let's do it. Might be great.
Hi, my name is Samantha Glendenning. I'm an MSW student intern here to support you with your therapy session today. How would you like me to address you?
Hi, my name is Bob. That's fine.
Bob, it's so great to meet you. So I'm so happy to see that you were able to get on the session today, okay? Did you have any difficulties with joining at all?
No, it was perfect. The link you sent me worked great. Thanks.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I know it's always hit or miss like online, so great to hear you were able to make it okay. How
Definitely.
is your day so far?
It's it's been a little slow, but I've been a little excited or anxious, I guess, thinking about us meeting today. But
Yeah, that's understandable. I know that some of these sessions or talking about difficult emotions can bring up a lot. So that is very understandable. How's the weather like by you today? I see you're also in Florida.
oh my goodness, yes. So glad to be in Florida right now. It's freezing all over the country, but we're having great weather here today. Sunny and beautiful. Looking forward to going outside for a walk or a bike ride or something after we get done talking today.
That's a great idea of something to do after a session too. I love that idea. So, Bob, before we get into your session today, I would like to talk a little bit about how therapy works here and what my obligations are to you. So, here in therapy, we follow something called HIPAA, which is the right and privacy, confidentiality, those type of things. So, I want to ensure that everything that you share in session with me will be kept confidential between the two of us. That being said, there is kind of one stipulation to that. So, if at any time, Bob, you share with me concerns related to your safety or the safety of others, that would be an instance where I would have to break that confidentiality. And that being said, I would just need to break that to ensure that you are safe and others are safe. Do you understand that?
Yes, that makes sense to me.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. And along the same lines, I also have the expectation here as a mandated reporter to report anything that comes up that might be concerning regarding safety of yourself or others as well. So, that being said, that goes along the lines of the confidentiality and privacy as well. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I don't think so. No.
Awesome. And then last thing here, I do want to make you aware that I am a student intern working under the supervision of a licensed professional. And with that being said, at any time, you do have the right to withdraw from treatment, ask any questions that may come up throughout session. Feel free to interrupt me, ask after, and of course, that right to confidentiality.
Okay. Thank you for
Awesome.
letting me know that.
And then, very last thing here, Bob, since we are completing our services via telehealth, I did want to just confirm your address at the start of each session, just for any issues that may arise, safety related or others. So, can I just confirm that you are on Berrywood Avenue in Tallahassee today?
That's correct. Yes, Sammy.
Great, great. Thank you so much. And then just before we dive into everything, do you have any questions for me right away?
No, not that I can think of.
Wonderful. And like I mentioned before, feel free to interrupt me at any point or ask questions at the end of session if anything comes up.
Okay.
All right. So, what kind of things are you hoping to address here in therapy?
Well, probably a lot. I'm currently going through a divorce with my third wife. It's kind of embarrassing. I feel all alone in the world again. I
Sure.
don't have anybody to depend on. I guess truthfully, I'm sad. I'm dissatisfied with my life.
Yeah.
I just have a long history of disappointment in my intimate relationships with women. That's probably a major one. And if I think of
Yeah.
another one,
That sounds like you're battling a lot right now. There's a lot on your plate and those emotions can feel extremely heavy. especially during such a transition of a divorce and then this history of the disappointment.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is a lot. I guess if I had to set an expectation for myself on what I can do is I need to figure out why I can't make any of my relationships last. I just want a long lasting relationship for once, but
Well,
I don't even know if I can do that.
yeah, it's fair to kind of feel that hesitation towards knowing if you're capable of having that, considering some of your past experiences. But I want to ensure you that that's a great goal for treatment and something that I can absolutely support you with. And also, just sharing with you, like, that is extremely vulnerable to be able to come forward and share that with me. So I applaud you for that. And I
Thank you.
think that's a great first step. That being said, Bob, have you ever experienced any forms of therapy before?
Oh, no, no. Mm-mm,
Okay.
no.
Well, has there ever been any like hesitation towards coming to therapy or anything that you could imagine, like regarding your culture or your belief system that may have been kind of like a barrier to you seeking treatment?
Well, yeah, I've never been willing to seek out any kind of treatment before. I mean, people around me, men, we don't seek out treatment. We just figure it out. We don't do that. My family never believed in mental health. So that's just
Yeah.
not something that was even a consideration before now.
So I hear you're saying like even from an early age, you were kind of told to just deal with it, and your family didn't believe in mental health, so it's kind of put a barrier there in your ability to seek out treatment for yourself now.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Thanks for providing some clarification on that. And um, I know a lot of what we may talk about might discuss some of the ways that our early childhood experiences impact who we are today. So I think that that is really important to kind of be able to identify some of those beliefs that might impact us in treatment. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I know you had mentioned your main reason for seeking out treatment was just some of those inconsistencies in your relationships and divorce in the past. Can you can you tell me more about this?
Well, I guess I can start at the beginning. It's kind
Okay,
of long. Um,
okay,
I was first married when I was 18 years old, and I guess I did that because I wanted to get away from my family. And I was trying to find somebody that would finally love me, just me. I don't know.
sure. Yeah, okay. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about that first marriage, just for me to kind of understand a little bit more of that background?
Well, like I said, it was just to get away. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old,
Mhm.
and I've always been the one that's been the blame of everything in my parents' marriage not working out, my father leaving. It's like they didn't want me. Um, I don't know. I just became so overwhelmed with this idea, and so I felt like I needed to flee. I needed to the first girl that would even look at me. I wanted her to accept me and love me.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm so sorry that that burden was placed on you at such a young age. You know, it's understandable that you would want to leave that difficult situation. That's a lot to bear at such a young age, and feeling all of that weight on your shoulders, I can imagine is very difficult. How was your first marriage?
Well, it was awesome. It was so great. But then after 2 years, I realized we didn't know each other at all. We didn't want the same
Yeah,
thing. And all of that just within the 2 years, it drove such a big wedge between us, resulting in divorce.
I can understand how, over time that relationship it fades. And thank you so much for sharing that, Bob. I
Mhm.
want to acknowledge that it can be really difficult to share things related to relationships and especially points of realization in which, you realize that maybe you need to make a change.
I did that. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. I mean, I just couldn't take it anymore in that marriage. But this is embarrassing to tell you. But then I married two more times since then. And of course, I'm getting divorced now again, as I told you. I mean, at this point in my life, it feels like it's nothing but transitions, just transitioning, which is exactly what I used to refer to my mom's life as I was growing up.
Okay, so maybe from what you're sharing with me, it sounds like there might be a little bit of a pattern in terms of maybe your relationship and what you observed with your parents and throughout your childhood. We do learn a lot from our environment. So definitely makes sense that there's a pattern that might be occurring there. Bob, can you tell me a little bit more about maybe this possible pattern that we're coming upon?
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you put it that way and explain it in that form, it certainly makes a lot of sense. I guess to me, I can see how a lot of that relationships and my failure of relationships is based in how I observed and what I endured during my childhood. I guess I don't know. The biggest thing I guess I can say is that I'm just so disappointed in myself that I turned out exactly who I didn't want to be. I'm so It just makes me so angry at myself that I've done this.
Thank you for sharing that, Bob. It is understandable that you're feeling angry. It's important to consider that the root of all of our human motivation is the individual's profound and intrinsic need for that attachment, that want to feel loved, nourished, cared for by others. So when we talk about that need for attachment, can you think of any times in your life where maybe you felt this sense of need for this attachment?
Are you going to just judge me like everyone else has?
Bob, it is important to acknowledge that, in times like this, you might be anticipating a response of rejection, possibly due to that early childhood experience. You can tell me as much or as little as you feel comfortable with doing so. I'm here to listen.
Fine, fine. Well, during my childhood, my mother used to blame me for my father leaving. It's probably not an uncommon thing, but every day my mom would make comments to me about how my father couldn't handle how much work a baby was, and that baby was me. So obviously they're blaming me. I mean, I had a sister, and although I had a positive relationship with her, I was responsible for being the adult, I guess. I had to feed her. I had to help her with her homework while my mother was off with
Wow.
another future husband or not around. It drove a wedge between us, almost like I wanted more and more and more from her.
Again, that is a ton of weight to bear at such a young age, Bob. And I really want to thank you for just being so vulnerable and sharing that with me. While you do have that positive relationship with your sister that you were able to identify, it's not the responsibility of a child to feed and care for a sibling. And, throughout this conversation, I can't help but notice when you told me about your relationship with your ex-wife that you're using the same words that you happen to be using now. That comment about driving a wedge.
Wow. 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 I guess I just didn't notice that. But I guess a lot of what I say and do in my current relationship was learned during my childhood, especially when it comes to my relationships. I don't know. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't even maintain a relationship with my son anymore. I do have a son from one of my marriages. And he won't speak to me because of my constant cycle of relationships or failed relationship. Guess it's like what you hear. History repeats itself. I'm a terrible father, just like my mother was a horrible mother. I don't know.
Okay. I hear that you feel as if you're also kind of struggling to maintain the relationship with your son as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's yes, it's very bad. I mean, it's just another thing to add to my plate, in addition to the other things I told you.
Yeah.
It, no matter what I do, everything I try to do, he still won't talk to me. I bought him tickets to his favorite concert, for example. Um, I begged him for forgiveness, and he won't budge.
Do you often feel like you need to please others in your relationship? Maybe like when you were a child with your mother?
Um, I guess so. I mean, I feel like I must always look for validation because I was never given that by my mother. I just bounce from woman to woman to women, hoping that I can finally fill that void that was in my childhood. I,
Yeah.
I guess.
It's like that constant cycle of seeking validation from others and never feeling really quite satisfied, attempting to kind of fill that void from your childhood. And I want to thank you for just being so vulnerable and sharing that. All of those emotions are difficult to experience, but also to allow to resurface. So thank you for that. And, you know, when we talk about typical patterns of behavior in relationships, is there anything that you can identify as your typical patterns in a relationship?
Well, I can't believe we're already getting these thoughts, but yeah, I mean, just talking with you right now, it, it seems like I mean, overreaching theme is that I'm always seeking approval and validation from others. There's just something about it. I
Yeah.
have no confidence. I never feel confident. And I guess if I think about it, my mom, she never seemed to lack a lot of confidence. She always talked down to me. So
Yeah.
maybe I learned it there. I don't know.
Absolutely. And that's such a good point, Bob. It is possible that the behaviors you observed in your childhood are absolutely contributing to your behavior now. And I want to ensure you that that's normal. I think that there's several things that we can work on to increase that self-esteem and that self-compassion, as well as, your relationship with your son and others.
Well, that sounds like a great plan. If we can do it, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I probably need to build myself up first, work on myself before I can get back into another relationship instead of just going for another unsuccessful one.
Yeah.
I, as hard as it's going to be, I guess, I guess I have to talk about all my horrible childhood experiences with you.
And I'm so proud of you for taking that first step and being willing to discuss these challenging things. Like I mentioned early on, it takes a lot to just take that first step towards seeking treatment, and especially despite the challenges of what was ingrained in your childhood about not seeking treatment and also just the experiences you had throughout childhood. So we don't need to tackle everything at once, and we'll pace everything accordingly to your comfortability. I want you to know at the end of the day, Bob, I'm here to support you.
Thank you, Sammy. I'm really nervous about this, but I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
Wonderful, Bob. This is the first step, and you should be really, really proud of yourself. Across sessions, I do think that it could be useful to implement a couple different assessment tools that we like to use. So, the first being the Bell Object Relations and Reality Testing Inventory, as well as the Quality of Object Relations Scale. And these assessment tools we can use to support in helping you to understand the reason for your behaviors, point out and confront the maladaptive contradictory behaviors, as well as to offer interpretations of those underlying reasons for the behaviors. So I know that you're probably not familiar with these assessments, but over time we can discuss them more thoroughly. But these assessment tools are well accredited and they can support you in reaching your goals for treatment. So,
That all sounds good to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that sounds good. I look
yeah,
forward to our future sessions.
wonderful. Me as well. And just to kind of wrap up our session, I always like to summarize and go through some of the things that we discussed today.
Mhm.
So, to summarize, we talked about the structure of the session, the importance of confidentiality, as well as mandated reporting. We discussed those prominent concerns and why you're seeking support. We also talked about the relationship between early childhood experiences and adulthood, and a few assessment tools that could be beneficial in future sessions. I do have one ask of you, Bob, before next week. So, I don't want you to look at this as homework, but this is more of something that we can work towards each session to get a little bit further and further towards your goals. So, before next week, I would like you to come up with a list of all the ways in which you believe that your childhood experience has shaped who you are today. I think that this activity could be a great opportunity for you to explore what transference is, as well as to work towards modifying the representation of yourself and others. What do you feel? How do you feel about that assignment? How are you
Oh,
feeling?
that'll be interesting, but I'll
Yeah.
try. I'll try.
Yeah, and that's my ask is just give it a try and we'll discuss it during next session. Go through some of those things that came to mind right away and we can also dig a little deeper and see what else might come to mind as well. Do you
Okay.
have any questions on anything we chatted about today as well as the little assignment for you for next week?
I, I don't think so. You've been very thorough. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. And, I always like to close out the session by asking, is there any feedback you have for me? I know that you've mentioned you've never came to therapy before. So any feedback that you'd like to share, I'm more than willing to listen.
The first thing that comes to mind is this wasn't as difficult or as painful as I thought it was going to be. So I'm very thankful for that. And I guess I feel relieved that there's some opportunity for me after
Yeah,
speaking with you during this session. So thank you for
that's
that.
great. That's wonderful, Bob. And I want to encourage you, you shared earlier, maybe go take a little walk or go on a bike ride after this session. That's a
Definitely.
good opportunity to practice self-care after some difficult conversation. So, I want to
Yes.
thank you again for being in session today and look out for our meeting for next week.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sammy.
Thanks so much, Bob.